Live in Brisbane, run 3 dental practices.
Principal dentist at 25.
Like it's 23, 24. So
23,
around
24. Did you always know that you wanted to be a dentist when you started?
Like I was going to go down your path, which is
Yeah,
finance.
finance.
Like back when I finished high school, my family background is in health. My dad's a doctor, GP. I was like, I don't want to do that. I consider myself to be successful if I posted every single day for 365 days. We are pretty restricted in what we do. For me, a lot of it's focused on education. Right? So there's no sort of limitations with educating people. And that's why a lot of the stuff that I have out there is me talking and giving information and basically just the questions that I'd get asked on a daily basis, putting them in simple videos and putting that out there. The execution is coming from a team, and not just from a team, it's from a great team, right? Like it's got to be people that are very good and very invested in what they're doing. Embrace the path, right? Like be open to the opportunities that come towards you.
Today we have a good friend, Waleed Arshad. Do you want to give us an introduction of yourself and tell us what you do?
Live in Brisbane, run 3 dental practices, partner in an e-commerce brand, and just living life. That's
Easy,
it.
bro.
The easiest way.
You became a principal partner at 25, I believe. Was it? Is it 25 years old?
Became a principal dentist at
Principal
25.
dentist at 25.
Like it's 23, 24. So
23, 24. Yeah.
So
Were you always going to be, did you always know that you wanted to be a dentist when you started? No.
Give us a whole story, actually.
Yeah.
When did the dentist,
dentist
thing come into play?
like I was going to go down your path, which is finance.
Finance.
Like back when I finished high school, like my family background is in health, and like my dad's a doctor, GP. I was like, I don't want to do that, right? But it was always like, you know, like the brown, you know, secure path, this and that. You don't know what you want to do. So I was like, right, maybe like I'll have a look into that. But then I was always interested in like investing in finance and all that sort of stuff. So the other option was to go down the investment banking route, and I. Like on my dad's like, you know, wishes and stuff, I applied for dentistry and all these different things everywhere in Australia, and then forgot about it. And then I was like focused on the engineering finance side of things. Because the other thing was like maybe computer science or software engineering or something like that. Like I was just looking at where the world was moving. And then I got an offer for dentistry, which I forgot about, right? After I'd already received an offer from like UQ, which has advanced finance and economics. And that was like the investment banking, corporate, private equity route. Right? And then I had dentistry and I was like, oh, like shit, what do I do now? Like I've got this offer. I never thought I was going to get an offer for anything health related. And I got it, and it was in Bendigo in Melbourne, right? Like that was the biggest question.
Was this in Latrobe?
Latrobe, yeah. And I was just like, I just weighed it up and I was like, you know, I don't know enough about the finance world to be like, I'm going to commit. I don't have any family members in that. Dentistry was just like a safe bet, really. Right. But my mind was always focused on business. So I was like, all right, I've got 5 years of uni and I can do whatever business I want in that. And hopefully something takes off before I graduate. And like, there's a good chance that I might not even have to go down. You know?
So is this after your undergrad? Was this a master's degree?
It was a master's degree, but a 5-year master's degree. So like 3 years bachelor's, 2 years master's.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a double degree.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
Would you say when you're studying, the background of your family being in that health space helped, or what was some of the challenges you reckon you were studying? Because it's pretty full on. Dentistry is when you're learning the course, you know?
I don't know. It was like my family background didn't really help that much, like because I wasn't really involved in it that much. I don't know, it was just
because you were in the creative space for a while, weren't you?
Yeah,
so like marketing,
media and branding sort of side of things.
That's where I branched out from like what was normal in my family, because like my family was, you know, this is a safe bet. This is where you can go down. My dad never really forced anything. Like if I'd gone down the finance route, he would have been fine. And when I was in like the 2nd/3rd year of uni, I was always in the look for like, all right, what can I do now? What can I do now? Before that, when I was in high school, I imported like a bunch of like stuff off AliExpress, and I was selling that. Like I remember there was a time when I was walking around like shopping centers with like a bag and like a printout of like, you know, t-shirts, trying to go up to people, like cold sell this like stuff. This is before AliExpress was even a thing. And then I was trying to find the next big thing that I could do, like when I was in uni. Not really focusing on dentistry and studying dentistry. My whole thing was just like, let me just get through the course. You know, let me just pass, and that's the main thing. And then that's when I came across like marketing, branding, and before I got into business with Cab doing like the creative group, I was doing my own marketing. So I just came across the world of agency, you know, like figuring out service to deliver and then finding people to do it. And that's where like it started off with websites, right? Selling people websites. And then I got into Facebook ads, marketing, and then met Cav, and Cav was obviously doing all his videography stuff. And then, you know, we were both sort of doing our own thing, but we became good friends.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, why don't we just merge this together and like see what we can do after that?
So you've got the you've always wanted to be in the business space, and then you've got the media, personal branding, and then dentistry comes in as probably say a supplementary thing to it, and then you sort of combine all three together to then phase up in a way. I think so once you're starting to study dentistry and you're going down that path, once you graduate, what's the next step that you take?
So
is it
like what happens like for me or just
for yourself? What happens?
So when I graduated, it was like, do I stay in Melbourne or do I come back to Brisbane? Right, that was a big question because I loved Melbourne. Right, but my family was in Brisbane. Right, so that's like I was raised in Brisbane, but I became a Melbourne person. Right, and I was like very sort of opposed to coming back to Brisbane because it just didn't have the same lifestyle and it was different, and you get used to being in Melbourne, and you know there's people that look like us everywhere. And like, you know, like you get used to it, right?
100%.
Like it's a different sort of culture.
It is,
and even different from Sydney. Like Sydney's a more intense culture, which is a different direction, but Melbourne's like that middle ground between
100%.
Not too Brisbane, but also not too Sydney. So you got that balance, and I basically just I don't know, like I was just like, all right, let me just go back for a bit. Lived with my parents, haven't been with them for, you know, a couple of years. And I was like, I just met my my partner at the time, that she became my wife after like a year after that. So she was in Melbourne. I moved back to Brisbane. I was like, I'm going to get married soon. I may as well just spend last, you know, year living with my parents before I never live with them again. And so that's why I moved back, got a job. Like the way that dentistry works is that you can either go down the salary route, right? But majority of the time, 90% of the time, it's all contractor, right? So majority of like dentists will work as contractors.
So how does this work in terms of with Bupa? Is that sort of, obviously it's corporate managed.
Yeah.
And then is it kind of you get profit out of
I can't really go, like I can't, if the commercial terms can't go into like,
let's go and
but basically like long story short, like the arrangement is that I'm basically sort of like a partner in each clinic, right? And each clinic I make a percentage of the profit, right? After everything is sort of turned over.
What makes a person shift? What do you think the traits are for a person who, like you said, a lot of dentists work in a salary based agreement, a lot of work in an ABN or contractor based as well.
I'd say, sorry to interrupt you, most work on contractor. Only people that are starting off work on a salary.
Right.
And even they move to contractor.
Later on. The contractor-based dentists, and then to a level that where you're at, what do you think needs to shift? What mindset needs to shift in order for you to be at the place where you're at currently, would you say, to be a partner?
I mean, the mindset was always business, right? And so my question was not a matter of like, do I go down this partner route or whether I go down a contractor route? It was, I'm going to do my own thing eventually anyway, right? But this came up as an opportunity that was unforeseen, right? Like I'd never had the intention of being a partner in a Bupa clinic. When I first started, like before I had started working with Bupa, I first started working with them as a contractor. Right? I was working at a different clinic as a contractor, and prior to that, I had a very sort of, as everyone does in the industry, a negative like preconception of corporate dentistry, right? Being like, you know, it's sort of what private clinics will drill in because the reality is that there's a lot of money here. Like they have a lot of money, right? They can squeeze people out of the market, right? And that's why private, like fully private people always have something to say, right? They're going to be like, oh, you know, these big corporates are pushing us out. But at the end of the day, like that's just the business. That's how it
100%.
works. So my question was, do I go down the private completely route, which is what I was intending on doing, and which was what the thing that was in my line of sight since the start, right? That was my plan from day one. To be like a contractor, work in a few different places, and then eventually acquire a clinic and then scale up and just basically build it up from there. When this came up, it was a matter of like sort of weighing up, do I go down the route that I had planned of just buying and like acquiring and, you know, doing that? Or do I go down this route of this, because this was not something that I wasn't even aware of it, that it was a thing. I got approached by like the guys at Bupa when I was working with them, and they were like, we have an opportunity that we want you to take. And they sort of caught wind that I was possibly going to leave and going to go and start a clinic, right, or buy a clinic. And that's when they sort of intercepted and brought it up. And then
So there's a reason why, I always believe there's a reason why, luck is not manufactured. It's multiplication of doing things over and over again.
Yeah.
What were you doing different? They're not going to approach every dentist that's going to leave the
100%,
clinic. What do you think? Obviously, there's a triple threat that we spoke about, the personal, the personal branding basics.
Yeah.
Is it more your client communication, client focus, or what are those things that, those metrics that dentists should be looking out for?
I guess my thing was when I came into the Bupa ecosystem initially, I didn't really conform to what everyone else was doing. I had an idea of like the sort of work that I wanted to do. I had my own workflows, my ways of communicating, and I had all of that, which was my own. And I went into an ecosystem that was existing where everyone was sort of operating in a very similar way. And then I started to do my own thing, which started to produce exceptional results. And then everyone there was like, whoa, like, how is he doing what he's doing? Like everyone was just doing general dentistry and not really doing too much. Then all of a sudden I come in a couple of years out of uni and like I'm placing implants and doing wisdom teeth extractions and surgery, and like I'm getting bigger cases for aesthetics and stuff like that, where there was people there that had been there for like 8 to 10 years and they weren't doing any of that. Majority of them sort of convince themselves that like that's not something that they want to do because it's too stressful. But usually that just comes from a place of like getting used to comfortable things and getting to a place where they're making decent money, they're not stressed out, they can go home, right? And that fire that they might have had at one stage just sort of dies down.
So embrace the uncomfortable. Embrace the uncomfortable.
Is that why you chose that niche as well? In terms of like surgical management and implantations instead of that general.
I mean, I just like I wouldn't. I don't know if I had to do anything else, I wouldn't do dentistry. I would be like, it's like too like If I had to do fillings and cleans, I'd be like, fuck this, fam. Go do something else.
100%. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
When you're doing, look, I just recently got at a consultation and I noticed that what you value a lot on is letting the client speak and actually giving them the opportunity and the space to actually tell you what they want rather than inputting your own feedback. Why is that important? And is that a trust thing as well?
I mean, I treat my consultations more just like almost like a conversation, right? I genuinely don't really care whether people go ahead with the treatment or not. And like, there's a lot of people that say that, but I genuinely actually like, if someone doesn't want to go ahead or they're not convinced that this is the right thing for them, that's the last person that I want to do treatment on, right? I don't know if you guys noticed, but I had my own teeth done. I've got veneers, right? And I went through the process and I like was on the other side, right? And I still designed and did all that stuff myself, but even being on the other side, you sort of go through like the uncertainty, the unpredictability, right? You don't know what the outcome is going to be like, and you're sort of taking this step of like permanently changing the way that you look, right? And so the last thing that you want to do is make a decision like that based off someone giving you a discount or someone pushing something down your throat. You know what I mean? It's a big decision. It sort of changes the way that you operate. And I think that's why for me, it was always even when the clinic started and, there was we're building up and all of that, here, it was always a matter of when I'm having these consults, I don't like my genuine like goal is to just give them all the information that they need in the most simple way possible. Like, because when we're talking about these things, they're very complex things that, people really can't break down into simple terms that the layman can understand. Right? So my goal is always, let me simplify stuff. So it's like really simple to understand that they can actually understand. And then once they understand it, then they can make an informed decision about whether it's something that they want.
It's funny because in finance world as well, I say that a lot. A lot of people go in there and be like, you're approaching it the wrong way. You need to try and sell, sales is a key factor. I said, well, if I'm providing as much value as possible to the client, customer, friend, cousin, whoever that may be, soon it's going to translate. They see the authenticity in that and they have that conversation piece and they go, okay, I can trust, or I give them a reason to trust me because it's a conversation piece, to be honest. And
obviously to do what you do, you needed a lot of experience. Did you have certain mentors that you relied on or leaned on?
At the start, yes. Like when I first started working, I initially started working really without a mentor. out a little bit further out in the Sunshine Coast. And then I came back to Brisbane. And then when I started working in Brisbane, I was working with someone who I think a lot of the traits that I have now, which is things like having a certain standard for myself and not sort of blowing, like not dropping below that standard.
Yeah.
You know, I can distinctly remember one time he told me like, you need to, I would try and take shortcuts, or like I would try and like be like, oh, that's good enough. Right. Just sort of like accepting, like, for example, you do a treatment and you look at the scan and you're like, all right, this is good enough. Right. But that he was like, you always need to, you know, set yourself a minimum standard of this is the lowest that I will accept.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't just, you know, you finish your, for example, preparing a set of veneers, for example, right? And you have a look and you push yourself one step further to be like, you know, slowly, consistently raising that standard every single time you do it. Because on a small scale, it doesn't really make a big difference. But you take that and you like, you know, compound that over 10, 20, 30 different cases that you do, you start to see things that you weren't seeing before.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, you're not actively really trying to do anything great, but over a long enough period of time, it turns into something a lot better.
Yeah.
If I just want to go on that one. If so, you said that's one of them. It's not a metric, but it's something that you strive to do, or you probably pass that on to now your staff that work in the different clinics. Yeah. What would you say is a one indicator that you would look at say a clinic, or you really push on to the staff members to really push on, you know, at a dentist clinic? What's something that they should really work on and strive on? So is it customer satisfaction, or is it more
patient-centered care?
Yeah. So our, like at all the clinics, like our number one key metric for success is patient experience, right? So like everything that we do is driven by the patient experience, meaning that, like, for example, me being on the other side, knowing like when I got my teeth done is, all right, what's the experience that people have to go through to get a result, right? And already being a daunting experience, right? And like being in a place where you can't see anything, you don't know what the end result's going to look like and all that sort of stuff. How do you make that experience as comfortable as you possibly can and as formed as you possibly can? So that goes to everything from like the way in which we do our checkup, right? Like we take DSLR photos, x-rays, we try and be as comprehensive as possible, to then the communication side of things, to also involving, like, it's not just about the dentist in the room, for example, but every single support staff, the reception, every single phone call that's answered, like that all fits into the same like metric, right? Meaning that if the answer to the question is that you're optimizing for patient experience, then you're doing the right thing, right? So if there's an issue that comes up and you don't know the answer to that issue, put it through the lens of, is this going to enhance or detract from the patient experience, right? And that's the answer to that question.
So if a patient comes in perfectly fine teeth and they come in and says, I want a set of veneers, how would you approach that situation? Would you say, you don't need veneers, your normal teeth are fine, or would you just go ahead with the surgery, or go ahead and give them veneers?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you define as fine, right? Like fine, what's a normal set of teeth or what's fine is subjective.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
so what's the criteria on defining what is fine and what's not fine?
What the person wants.
Okay.
Right. So because you can't like sort of put all of these different treatments into the same basket, right? Veneers are they're a cosmetic enhancement, right? Like a structural / cosmetic enhancement. And so that's the same as, for example, I would say in the female like world, right? It's the same as like getting your lips done or getting Botox or getting things like that, right? It's a cosmetic enhancement that you do to look a certain sort of way and to create a certain sort of perception about yourself. Other treatments like rehabilitation, reconstruction, implants, that sort of stuff, that is in a way also a confidence building exercise. Like, say, for example, someone's got destroyed teeth and you can't save them, right? You have to go down the route of removing everything, placing implants, and then fixing a new set of teeth on that. But it's a different conversation, right? Because you're not going it through the lens of you've got really good teeth and you want to take it from like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 to like a 10 out of 10, right? It's those conversations would be the same as, for example, how a plastic surgeon would have a conversation with someone that wants a facelift, or they want, like, you know, something specific done, where they might already have a nice nose, for example, but they want to take their nose from a certain shape to another shape, right? So that conversation is different, right? So that conversation is more, let's sort of dig deep into what it is specifically that you want and why it is that you want it. And let's go through the different options of, you know, if you do want veneers, is it just the whiteness of your teeth that you're not happy with? If it's just the whiteness, then maybe you can just achieve the result that you want from whitening, right? But if it's shape, symmetry, edges are starting to wear down, right, there's certain things that are just playing on their mind, then that's what the treatment is there for.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's something like, for example, reconstruction of the mouth, and like that's where the conversation is more centered around what are the different routes that we can go through to achieve the end outcome in terms of cost, but also in terms of how long is this work going to last,
Yeah.
and what does the future look like. So if this, you get a surgery done, any surgery can last for maybe 15 years, right? 15 to 20 years until the ceramic, the titanium, and all of the prosthetic stuff starts to wear down just because of natural wear and tear over time, right? And so if that surgery then needs to be repeated in 15 or 20 years, A, are they able to maintain that, right? If they're going to go and spend that money again, and B, is there going to be enough like infrastructure and space in the surgery world, we mean bone, to be able to actually achieve that result again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different thought process around these things. Yeah.
It's interesting that you touched on a couple of things there, and then you also spoke about, how you said at the start, it's a customer conversation as well. So I think there's a lot of psychological aspects in people getting their teeth done. Like, I'll be honest, me personally as well, I approached a clinic in Melbourne, fancy place, everything looks very aesthetic and great.
Yeah.
And got the whole DSLR, the photos and everything done.
Yeah.
They said, we'll give you a call back. A week went by, no call. 2 weeks went by, no call. I was happy with the pricing and everything was good.
Yeah.
And then they just didn't call back. And I'm like, customer care is the most important factor. And then I was in that room thinking to myself, yes, the customer conversation is important, but a lot of the people that were going, including myself, is more of a psychological aspect.
Yeah.
And do you notice that when you're speaking to patients as well, is that you're not acting as a psychologist, but really they're telling you about, there's a certain way they want it to look. So how do you manage that psychological aspect as well?
I mean, it really just comes down to like what it is. Like before we get into any of the teeth stuff, we talk a lot about like what is it, what's driving you to get this done, right? Like what is it that you're trying to achieve? And that's the main thing, is like if they don't really have an answer to that question, then it may just be that they've seen something and they're just getting influenced. And that's where you have to sort of let them know that like this is not just as simple as like, you want nice teeth and then you're going to get nice teeth, right? This is a much bigger conversation in which you're going to have you're going to permanently be committed to this for the rest of your life now.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to weigh up then, is this permanent change that you're going to go through worth the commitment that you've now committed yourself to? Which means that, for example, me getting veneers, I now know, right, because I'm fully informed, that I have to get these teeth redone maybe every 10 to 15 years, right? And so when I have that conversation and I tell someone that, it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing, right? But it's just that for each person, they have to sort of put that through the lens of their own guiding principles, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I ask myself the question of, okay, am I going to commit to this? The answer is that I know in the way that I get the veneers done and in the way that these veneers are done for me, right, that it is the most minimal invasive way of doing it, right? It's not like my teeth have been cut down. Like realistically, if I show you a photo of what my teeth look like underneath, you would say it almost looks as though it's my natural teeth. Like there's barely anything that's been shaved away, right? Yeah. But if you go through a process where that's not the case, then you've committed to something that, if say for example you might not have the opportunity of getting the veneers replaced in 10 or 15 years, you might end up having teeth removed, and now you're going to be committed to a set of implants, for example, right? And so these are the things that we need to speak to them about, to be like, okay, psychologically this is going to satisfy you, but if you didn't get it done because of X, Y, and Z, right, in the fact that to be able to achieve this result, we're going to have to do this, this, and this. Yeah. Right? Are you going to still be happy to take that sacrifice to achieve the psychological result that you want?
So are there certain like contradictions in terms of psychologically or their mental health and well-being that you look out for before providing care? Or is there like certain outcome measures you use to kind of gauge their mental health or their psychological health and well-being before you kind of go and treat them or provide them service?
I don't think I could give you like an actual like protocol that I use, but I think my personal like ability to sort of read the red flags in people is like just subconsciously strong enough to be like, if I can tell that this person is going to either get into a situation that they will regret, right, or this desire is not coming from the right place, then I will not refuse to treat them, but I'll basically let them know that this isn't something that I can do for them, right? Because a lot of people will optimize for as many cases as they can get, right? They just want to do as much work as they can. And for me, the worst thing in the world getting, it's almost like a relationship, right? That I get into with each patient, right? Because for them to go through this, they're going to see me, I'm going to be, drilling their teeth, I'm going to see them follow up and all of that sort of stuff. And they know that. So the last thing that I want is to get into, theoretically speaking, or like, metaphorically speaking, I don't want to get into bed with anyone that I wouldn't want to see on a consistent basis, right? Like if that personality alignment between me and them, it doesn't exist. And if it, there may be someone out there who is the right fit for that person, right? Because as humans, we're all different, right? And you don't get along with every single person that you meet, right? And that's why there's many dentists that will do the same treatment and they'll attract different, crowds of patients, right? And so the crowds of patients that are going to come to me are not necessarily going to be the crowds of patients that are going to go to someone else down the road.
Yeah.
Right. In the suburb that we're in right now, there's going to be a mix of people, and there's going to be a couple of different dentists and stuff that are doing different treatments.
Yeah.
But people will flock and go to the person that they see that they can resonate with the most. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't let that be the thing that drives me. I let it be the same as if I was, making a friendship with someone or getting into a relationship with anything like that. It needs to be a synergy of like, if I'm going to do this for you, you have to respect that I know what I'm doing. And if you don't have that respect for me, then that's fine, but I can't do the work for you.
Yeah. And in terms of like surgery or fixation, whatever it is, is there sort of a certain rehab or protocol that you follow before the surgery, or what do you get them to do?
A lot.
What does that
like,
involve?
do you mean like the full mouth surgeries and stuff like that? Yeah. We have a very comprehensive process. Like I have a process that is sort of like bullet. Like no, you're right. All good?
Yeah, 1 second, let me just turn it off. Yeah, all good.
Yeah. I've got a process that I've just built in to be like, to save myself from getting into like, into surgery with people that I don't want to be doing surgery on, or, getting into a situation that I don't want to be in. I have a process where I don't really let anyone pass through unless they're fully informed of all these different things. Mm-hmm. So what that looks like is, say for example, a lot of my cases that come through for the surgery stuff is through my personal brand. Yeah. Right. And so the first thing is, say for example, you need to, you've got teeth that aren't where they need to be, and the only real option is to, for example, have them removed and all of that sort of stuff. You will see a landing page or an ad. You see an ad or something like that. You might see a couple of different ads over a few different days, and then you'll eventually end up leaving your details, right, with a bunch of different questions. And then someone from my team will contact, right, and sort of screen them on the phone, right, screen them for like all the different questions, basically sort of almost like a mini consult on the phone to be like acquiring as much information to then give me. And if they feel as though that person is qualified to come in for a consultation, then they'll book them in for a consultation.
So there's a set of steps to go through before reaching to the final consultation.
To the first consultation.
First consultation, right? Yeah.
So and then they get booked in for the first consultation.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they come in, before they come into the first consultation, they already get a PDF which has my pricing in it, my processes, like results that they can expect and all that sort of stuff that automatically gets emailed out to them. When they come in, then it's a matter of like taking the relevant scans and then giving them information personalized to them.
Yeah.
Right? And sort of, they might come in being like, oh, I want to have all my teeth removed and implants placed. But my goal is not to give them what they want. It's to give them what's going to be best for them, right? Or at least to make them aware of the different avenues that we can go
so
down.
An evidence-based approach.
Yeah. So for example, I had someone that came in just this week who thought that what they needed was all of their teeth removed. And I basically told them that, like, look, your top jaw does need that, but your bottom jaw we can keep, right? And I would advise that you keep it, because we keep it and we might rebuild it with, say, for example, fixed prosthetics on the teeth like crowns, but we don't need to remove these teeth, right? There's a couple of teeth down there that need to be removed, right? But you'll thank me later, right, if you just keep the teeth, right, and we work around it. And they come in being like, they want the quickest thing and they want the cheapest thing and they want all of that. But when you give them all of that information, then they sit with it. And so that's the first consultation. Take the scans, give them personalized advice. Now, the next step from there is that they get booked in for a second consultation. So I never get anyone to do anything on the first go, right? They come in at the end of that appointment. I basically tell them, like, look, this is all the information I've given you. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to book in a second consult for you. And when you leave here, my team is going to email you everything from the warranty form to the preoperative form to the postoperative form, right? Which is like 2 25, 30 page documents, including everything from like what the healing looks like to what the management of like the prosthetic looks like over the 6 months and when we'll move them to a final prosthetic.
Yeah.
Right. They get all of that information. And the key thing is that they have to bring their partner or their parents or whoever it is that's going to be involved in that process for them to that second consult. So
Yeah.
they get all that information. They get emailed all the extra information as if they're about to go through the surgical process.
Yeah.
Right. And then they have to come to the second consult with someone who's going to be involved in picking them up, dropping them off, taking care of them. Right. I tell them that they've got to go through all of that at home with that person and then come back for that second consult. And at that second consult, ask me whatever questions they have. Right, because that's what I need, and I need them not just from them, but whoever's actively involved in this process with them as well.
Let's just say you've advised a patient on a certain subject, and they come back to you and say, "No, I don't want this. I want it my way." How do you kind of approach that?
I will tell them that this is what the future could look like. Right.
Yeah.
And I document and keep a track of all of this. Is that if they get sent treatment plans with different options and they get sent an email with all the different options and why, in very layman simple terms of like, this is why you need to, like, this is the best thing for you. You can still go down the other route. Say, for example, if, the patient that I had this week, if they wanted to go down the route of, removing the lower teeth, then that is still something that I could do for them, right?
Yep.
As long as they are completely informed of the consequences of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not that my treatment plan is the only right treatment plan. It's just that it's what I recommend. They could go to someone else down the road and they might say, no, you can't save your lower teeth, right? So you go to 10 different dentists to do the same work. There might be 10 different treatment plans.
So what does that involve? When you don't want to treat somebody, do you refer them on, or do you just say, no, I'm not going to treat you, go somewhere else?
So if it's a case where, like, say, for example, I've had someone that genuinely doesn't need any teeth removed, right?
Yeah.
And they're pushing it on me to be like, nah, I don't care. Like, just take them out and give me like implants. And I can genuinely see that these teeth are maybe a little bit worn down, but you definitely don't need to remove them. Like, they've just been convinced. My approach to that would be that, look, this is something, like, I'm not comfortable taking your teeth out. I'm sure there's someone out there that'll do it for you, but it's not going to be me.
It's interesting, isn't it, that you mentioned the stages. I think that applies to a lot of the businesses, like even any service-based business is that first initial, that consultation and everything. Then the second and then the third is more about closing and actually determining on what the action needs to be as well. You said you get a lot of your leads through the personal branding.
Yes.
That's like your personal branding now, I think, is at a level where you're consistently looking to expand and grow that for a lead generation. I think we touched on a lot about the processes and what happens once that lead has come through. But actually gathering that lead and gaining that lead, what made you pivot to personal branding? Do you think that's the future? And do you think, what are some things, if someone's looking to grow their personal brand, not just in this space or any space, what do they need to do? What are the steps they need to take, would you say?
So I think personal branding for me was just a step into taking the principles of marketing and applying it to, like, I personally felt what was the biggest piece of brand equity that I have, right? Is that obviously with the clinics all being Bupa dental clinics, I don't need to market the clinics, right? We get so much inbound flow of just general patients that side is covered, right? But what the biggest issue, or like the biggest bottleneck, for example, in corporate or within Bupa, is that they don't do any marketing for these big cases. Because to be honest, there's not a lot of people in the clinics that want to do that sort of work. But for example, for me, I still sort of work that I want to do, that I want to provide. So I sat down with myself and I was like, all right, how do I get this end result? Now, initially, like the first 12 months of my personal brand was not patient centered. It was all dentist centered, right? Because at that time I started to, I wanted to start with something that I was comfortable speaking about, right? And I wasn't really confident or comfortable enough with, for example, talking about surgery or talking about veneers or aesthetics, because I was still building up my skills, right, to go onto social media and present as someone that can speak about these things. So I have sort of that, again, that standard for myself, that unless I feel confident in something, I don't really want to be giving the information out there. Okay. So that's where, like, I was basically at that point, my strong point was communication, right? Communication with patients and processes of how you can simplify things, and basically the sales of dentistry applied to, like, the context of the stuff that we do. And so that's what I started with for the first 12 months. Towards the end of the 12 months, I realized that I would now, I'm now at that point where I can pivot and now move towards patient-centric communication, because that would be the bigger, driving factor for me, because the initial 12 months allowed me to build trust sort of within the dental community. And from a clinical point of view, it allowed me to sort of gain more influx of inquiries for dentists that wanted to come and work.
Yeah.
Right? So it was more of like a business of acquiring good talent.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's like, from a business lens, that's what you need, is you need someone that can come into your clinic, that can produce, and that can give your patients the same experience that you're trying to achieve. Once that was done, then it was right, let's pivot, because the next step is that now that I'm confident about talking about these things, the patient-centric communication achieves both of those results as well, right? The initial 12 months, it doesn't speak to patients, but the second, what I'm doing now, which I've been doing for the last 6 months or so, that speaks to patients, but also it speaks to dentists as well, because you're publicizing the work that you do. And from a dentist lens, if they're seeing that you're doing this sort of work that they want to do, then that is something that attracts them as well. So that's why I pivoted to that. And for me, it was always just a mindset of like, all of these things just slowly compound, and it's just a matter of like consistency. The first 12 months of doing it, I just had one goal. Like, it was just literally the only goal that I had was to post every day for 12 months.
Post more.
I started, I was like, there's no metric for me other than one post a day. I was like, I don't care what happens, just one post a day, whether it's like an image that I make on Canva, or like a carousel that I generate through AI, and I just like put it into a Canva document or something. Doesn't matter. I just need to focus on just one post a day consistently for 12 months. Not have any thoughts about the feedback that I get, or the comments that I get, or anything like that. I consider myself to be successful if I've posted every single day for 365 days. And that was the only thing that I started.
Just on that, obviously, there's a dentistry board on APRA, and there's certain guidelines on how you can market yourself and what you put out there. How do you kind of mitigate around those guidelines, and what are the things you kind of watch out for so you don't overstep those guidelines?
I mean, we are pretty restricted in what we do. So, I mean, for me, a lot of it's focused on education. Right, so there's no sort of limitations with educating people, and that's why a lot of the stuff that I have out there is me talking and giving information, and basically just the questions that I'd get asked on a daily basis, putting them in simple videos and putting that out there. The stuff that would work really well, but that we have to be really careful with, is things like testimonials and things like that. And so that's where I still have, a couple of testimonials, but the key distinguishing factor is that testimonials can't be clinical, right? Meaning that they can't be specifically about the clinical side of things. So the result that they achieved, because that will give other people the false sense of
so you kind of have to word it in a way, this is what I found, this is what the evidence showed. You can't.
So from the patient lens, so for example, if we're interviewing them for a testimonial, it will all be patient experience related. So for example, the team was really nice, they were very informative, it was very comfortable, right? And things like that, rather than being like, oh, I'm really happy with the teeth and they were great and everyone should get this done. Do you know what I mean? So that's where we sort of distinguish. And still, my focus is always on focusing more on the education, right? Whereas I might have a testimonial, like since I started the pivot, I've probably had like 2 testimonials, whereas the education stuff is something that happens every day.
And it's awesome I think education, like you said, is talent attracting. You want the quality people to come to you, as well as, is there any other outcomes that you're looking to achieve by educating the next generation of dentists, would you say? So, as well,
like my brand now doesn't educate the dentists. It's more about educating patients.
Right. So educating the patients. And do you think the lead inflow is the main outcome that you're looking for?
Yeah. But the secondary benefit of that is the dentists also see the same thing, and they might get attracted from the brand that I'm building, or they might get attracted from the way in which I'm communicating, or something along those lines. But that's not my primary goal anymore. My primary goal is the treatments that I want to do, to answer, like educate the patients that are out there looking for the treatments about those things.
I just want to throw one thing in the loop, right? As we're on this same topic of leads and structure and input, why? Obviously, people go to Turkey because it's a lot cheaper.
That's what I was going to ask.
Was it actually?
Yeah.
People go to Turkey because it's a lot cheaper, and we've broken down the process of how we look after treatments here in Australia, and sort of how you do your workflow, the lead coming in, as well as our treatments, and how personalized we are. Turkey's cheaper, but why do people? Is it mainly because it's cheaper in Turkey? What is your thoughts on that?
Is there a difference in quality? That's what I want to know.
Look, I think my biggest, like my paradigm shift is like after getting my teeth done.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would not recommend anyone to go overseas. Like,
Yeah.
especially because like, I don't know, just it's like for me, it's a very like logical, common sense sort of approach to thinking. Right? Is that when you go, for example, if any of you were to go to Turkey, either of you were to go to Turkey, can you guys speak Turkish?
Yeah.
No.
Right?
No.
Do you guys? Okay, let's take it a step back. Yeah. Do you guys know do you know anything about dentistry?
No.
Right. Do you know how good veneers look like? Do you know what a good prep looks like? Do you know what a good ceramist looks like? Right. In Australia, right, if you had to go somewhere, where would you go? Based off what you can see off social media, right?
Correct.
But that's with you guys having a very comprehensive level of English, right? You guys were like born and raised here. You guys know everything about the city that you live in, right? You have word of mouth referrals from people that have got their teeth done. So that's how you build a certain perception about where you're going to go, right? So if you are then going to go overseas, you basically eliminate all of that, right?
Yep.
So even with the context that you guys have, you can still go somewhere and you can still end up with not a great result.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's to guarantee you in any way that you can go to somewhere where you don't know the culture, you don't know the language, you don't know anyone, right? You don't know their like infection control standards, you don't know the processes, you probably don't even know the name of the regulatory board there. Right. So you don't know any of that, right? But you're going to basically veneers, even something as simple as veneers is you got to see it the same way as like, you know, if you were to get like a hip replacement or a knee replacement or anything like that, like you want to, it's a permanent, like long-term change. I think about it on myself and I'm like, going through the process, I'm like, this is now how I look, you know what I mean? And for me, I'm a dentist, which means that I can change it pretty easily, right? But for anyone else that's not, like, you got to go through the process of spending the money again, and you got to go through the process of drilling the teeth again. And every time you drill the teeth again, it's going to make the teeth sensitive. And then your teeth, which were perfectly fine and had no sensitivity, and you were eating with them fine, now all of a sudden they're sensitive, and you might need treatment on them that they didn't need, right? Just because you didn't go to the right place, for example, right? And so with the Turkey and the overseas side of things, that's my train of thought is like, if you're Turkish and you've got family in Turkey and you know the language and you know how to find someone really good, then I have nothing against Turkish dentistry, right? Because like I know for a fact that there's many clinics there that are great. There's going to be clinicians there that are internationally trained, that have gone to the same courses that some of the best people in Australia and the US and stuff have gone. But even if you think about going to the US, right, you're going to have really good places and you're going to have really bad places, right? And so in Turkey, you're also going to have really good places and you're also going to have really bad places. Yeah. And the distinguishing factor is that anyone can do the marketing, whether they're good or bad. Right? Yeah. And they can create a certain perception about themselves, right? Because that's the power of marketing. Yeah. But if there's a clinic that's marketing in Australia from Turkey and they have a really bad perception, how are you going to know?
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't speak the language. You can't ask someone. You can't, you can chat GPT it, but what does chat GPT know?
100%. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like
it goes to that same metric of personalized care. And someone that you know is going to say, okay, Dr. Waleed was great. You should go try him out. And then, it's a snowball effect. Whereas you don't get that overseas. You don't get that personalized care, to be honest. Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to touch base on the types of patients you get, because earlier you mentioned you mainly focus on cosmetic type cases. Yeah. Do you get any like trauma cases or anything like that you take on?
Yeah. I mean, like trauma, like we still do a lot of general dentistry as well. Yeah. But it's not purely cosmetic. Like my day to day will be, at the moment, probably like 50 to 60% cosmetic implant, and the rest of it will be just your normal sort of emergencies, single unit crowns, all that sort of stuff. So.
And how does that kind of work? Where do you get your referrals from? Is it like a hospital close by, or how does that?
All of that's just like inbound Bupa patients and stuff like that. So we've got our base, right? Like here, Green Slopes, like the clinics have their base, which is just general dentistry, like everything from emergencies to consults to all the normal stuff that people need for their teeth. The bigger work that we're talking about is it's not the standard. So this is the stuff that I do. Yeah. And all the other dentists in the clinics, they don't do the stuff that I do. They will just deal with the normal day to day.
Do you think, I think you touched on, obviously AI is such a huge concept now in every industry. In the dentistry, do you think that it's going to cause an impact? Where do you see the future is headed? Are we preparing for it at the moment? What do you think is happening?
Or just in the medical space?
Yeah, in the medical
I
space.
mean, I think from a patient point of view, like I think for us it's great, right? Because we are able to streamline and do so many things like so quickly that we weren't able to do before, right? Like things like generating smile designs that are suited to people's faces and giving them an idea of like, you know, what their before and after is going to look like, you know, like all these different things, like even treatment planning and like x-ray scans that are AI powered to pick up on things that we would, you know, sometimes miss and all that sort of stuff. So that's really great. I think the problem that I can see is that it gives patients the false sense of confidence that they know what they're talking about when they have no idea what they're talking about half the time, right? Like just because you've searched something up on AI, right, it does not mean that you don't see the day-to-day that we deal with, right? And so it gives, you know, I was just talking to someone recently and like apparently the amount of like complaints just in like the normal space of, you know, dentistry has gone up exponentially, especially because we're in like a down market at the moment. Like there's a bit of a recession, people, you know, cost of living, all that sort of stuff. So people are finding ways to try and claim money back, even though they've gotten the result that they want, or just finding excuses to make complaints about things that aren't complaints. Yeah. And it's all powered by AI, right? Meaning that all of a sudden everyone thinks they're a lawyer and a dentist.
Experts, yeah.
They're an expert. That becomes a challenge for us, right? Which, I mean, the benefit is still that we can also be a dentist and a lawyer using AI to, you know, generate responses to these things. But at the same time, it's just not, I don't know, it's a difference from where things were previously. Yeah. And I was just going to say, there was another question that you asked before that I forgot to answer, which was how would I recommend people going into personal branding? So we can jump back on that.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Yeah. And I think that was going to, because you touched on being a metric being post every day. And right now we're looking to build our personal brands as well. And that's been my metric, is post every day. And I'm focused on the education space too, because you educate, you provide value, people resonate with that, right? So what would you recommend to people looking to build their personal brand? What would you say? So
my way of doing it is to reverse engineer, right? Meaning that people will post just whatever, right? But they won't really have I think posting whatever is still better than posting nothing, right? But you need to post with intention, right? Meaning that if you are, say, for example, trying to achieve a certain outcome, your goal needs to be, let me go through the shoes of what this person is going to see, right? And let me treat my entire page or ecosystem as almost like a funnel or like an ecosystem that someone gets indoctrinated into, right? Meaning that, for example, if I was to use my own personal brand as an example, for me, my Instagram like profile is like a landing page, right? Meaning that everything that's on there is very specifically engineered for a certain result, right? Meaning that if I'm the patient, right, you might see one of my ads, right? The ads might speak specifically to something that you've been thinking, right? And so that's where the first step is, like, to dig deep and be like, all right, what are the things that people that are your customers or people that are in your audience, what are they thinking, right? What are the questions that they're asking on ChatGPT, for example? What are the questions that they're researching on Google? And provide them a solution with that, right? And show them your personality. Again, coming back to what we were saying before about there's going to be certain group of, like, you know, clients or patients that are going to be your patients because they resonate with the sort of person that you are. And so that's where you need to build that perception around yourself so the right people can find you, right? So they don't go to the wrong person for them. So that's step number one, is figure out the sort of person that you are, figure out the perception that you want to create, and then, you know, manufacture that perception, right? So that people can see who you are, right? Then provide them value, right? Answer the questions that they would come in front of you and the things that they would ask, and answer it in a way that makes sense to them, right? And then answer all of those questions, because again, like, if we go through, you know, if you know, the way in which you go on your Instagram is that you might see something and then you click on it and then you go off, and then 2 or 3 days later you get hit with something else, and then you see it again, right? And so people go through this process of, they might see you for like 6 months before doing anything. And so what you need to do is, over that 6 months, you're almost developing an a virtual relationship with them, in which they're seeing the things and they're hearing the things and they're getting the answers that they want, and they almost come to know you, with the goal being that when they walk in through the door, it's almost as if they know exactly who they are, and a lot of the work that you need to do in front of them has already been done. And so that's what it is that, you know, people will click on the thing, they'll come onto the page, they'll see me. Again, the page needs to show personality so that they can resonate with that personality. And if they don't resonate with that personality, or if they think I'm an idiot, then they can click back off of it. Of course. Right? Because there's someone else for them. Now, the next step from that is that, the pinned posts, right? For me personally, they instill a sense of authority, right? Meaning that, my pinned posts on my page are before and after photos, and they click on those before and after photos, and then there's a case study behind what happened there, right? So they get a sense of, okay, this is the sort of work that he does, and this is explainer videos of like why he did what he did, and again, reinforcing the sort of personality that I'm going to, like what the sort of person that they're going to be dealing with, right? And then they might go on to the highlights, right? And again, the highlights have been put there for a specific reason, because if they want to know, what sort of aesthetic outcomes does he have, they can go to the before and after. If they want to know what sort of life I live, they can go to some of the other posts. If they want to see what my day-to-day looks like, they can go into like the 2026, highlight reel, right? So they can go through all of these different things, and they can get an idea of who it is that they're going to be dealing with.
So it's about sectioning it off.
And I think the topics that you covered there that I just picked up was know your consumer, know what they're searching and what they want, be intentional, and be intentional about the perception that you're trying to create, and then be educational and provide value to who you're trying to cater to. That's awesome.
But that last point is really key, in that it's not just like basic level information, but it's like really actually putting yourself in their shoes and like thinking, I talk to my patients that have gone treatment done, and I ask them, like, what was a thing that caused you to go with me? And what was it? What did the process look like before you ever got anything done, right? And so a lot of the time the answer to that question is, I was come home from work, I've got all these issues going on with my teeth, and I sit on the couch after dinner and I start researching, start asking questions, and then after I start asking questions, go into like social media, and then I start getting hit with ads. Right. And so that gives you an insight into, is that person researching after dinner? Are they going to be doing it late at night? Right. Again, feeding into the fact that if you're getting, how do you then reach that person? Because if they're in that researching mode late at night, your team can't call them straight away. Right. And so by the time the next morning comes around, you're going to give them a call, and they're not going to pick up because they're going to be at work. Right. And with the amount of marketing and stuff these days, people don't pick up, any phone call, right? Let alone a random phone call thinking it's going to be a scammer, or, like one of their debts from back in the day that they haven't paid off or something like that. Yeah. Right. And so then you've got that battle as well of being like, the person who submitted the details, they might actually need the treatment, and they're watching you and they're meaning to get something done, but the connection isn't there, because then your team calls up the lead, and they call up and follow up and follow up and follow up, and no one picks up the phone. So you start to think, is that person just not wanting the treatment? But a lot of the time it's just figuring out, like, how did they get to where they got to? How did they submit those details? How can you put yourself into that position at the right time? And then how can you make it really easy for them to actually get in, right, without trying to catch them at a good time and stuff
you
like that.
Displayed a lot of information there that we spoke about. How do you track all this? How do you keep, is it all just in here? Or how do you track, information coming in, information going out in terms of customers? Are you note taking? Is there a specific thing that you use? Something that is it all just sitting in here?
Tracking and stuff like that?
Is it all just sitting in here? Or it's just engraved in your mind that, at the customer, you've dealt with that so many times through your experience that you go, this customer is at this point, we're getting them at this point. This is what requires to happen, or is it, you're documenting it, your process as you go, or systemizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the whole everything for me is systemized. I have a brain idea, and then it becomes a real thing, right? And so I go from idea to execution very quickly, right? So the system that I have in place is built from ideas that I get, and then it gets systemized, and then it gets managed by the team. Right? So like with this whole process of leads coming in and managing and all of that, that's all, there's a CRM, there's SMS automations, there's email automations, there's, team follow-ups and all of that, but I don't deal with any of that. That's like once it's set up.
Create the system.
Yeah, the system is set up. Prior to that, anything that I have in terms of after I talk to someone and I get an idea about something, that's where it's in my mind, and then I figure out, okay, this is something that would work. So say, for example, someone tells me that, I'll give you an example, right? That I had a chat with a patient. He was like, he's gotten the treatment done. It was post-treatment that we had the chat. And he was like, when I was researching, what I told you before is that he was doing his research at 7, 8 p.m. after he's had dinner, he's sitting on the couch. And I'm like, all right, that is difficult because my staff can't reach out to them. So if he's submitting a lead form at that time, how is someone going to reach out to him, right? And so then it's a little bit of time of just, okay, let me ponder and think on how I can figure out a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Right. Meaning that, because the other question that I asked him as well was, what about the next day? Like, if we were to call you, would you be able to pick up? He was like, probably not, to be honest. He's like, it's not that I can't pick up. It's more just that, like, I just am so busy and I see a phone call, and unless I know who it is, I just can't be stuffed picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Right. And by the time that the next day comes around, I've already forgotten about the lead forms that I've done. So I don't even know who it is that's calling me. And then I was like, all right, so what I need is, like, from a first principle standpoint, is I need a way to engage with him as when he's in active research mode, right? And so my solution to that was to create a, like an AI automation bot, basically, where I've fed all of the information about everything that I do, right? And it's almost as if, like, when they submit the form, they get an SMS or they get a message, right, being like, hey, like, I saw that you submitted your details, just wanted to ask, is there any further questions that you have? And then they get answers to whatever they ask based on my database of information.
Yeah. The one key term that keeps coming up is team.
Yeah.
How important is a team for you, and what sort of values do you look in your team?
Important is an understatement, man. It's like, it's not even important. It's like, you can't do it like
Yeah.
without a good team. Like, it's not just like, and I like, it's the one thing that I make my patients aware of. It's the one thing that I make, like, people aware of, is like, it's got nothing to do with me. Like, I'm just literally thinking of things. The execution is coming from a team, and not just from a team, it's from a great team, right? Like, it's got to be people that are very good and very invested in what they're doing. And that's where, for treatments like this, for patients like this, it's really critical having someone that is, a representation of the brand that you're trying to build, right? And a representation of the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And so that's what the team represents to me, is not just, they are just as much a part of the process as I am. Like, it's...
Yeah.
If I'm a young dentist aspiring to be in that team, that, you're very selective with, what qualities are you looking for in that dentist?
So when I'm talking about team in that context, I'm talking about dentists. I'm talking about
back-end team.
I'm talking about, like, support staff, treatment coordinators, reception. Like, that's the real team. The
Real
dentist
team,
team
right.
is, that's a
different
sort of...
in that support. Let's go both then. What are you looking for in a quality dentist, and what are you looking for in a quality support staff team?
So the number one thing, like I said, is always they're going to be optimizing for patient experience. Right? Meaning that that's, like, thing number one. Right. Thing number two is, like, again, proactive, invested. Right. They feel as though they're a part of something. Right. And they're invested in that. Like, if we're doing, these bigger treatments, they feel as though they're a part of delivering that outcome for that person. Right. They understand that, like, this is a big thing that this person is going through, and they embrace the fact that they're involved in that process.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing from a dentist standpoint as well. Like, obviously, if they're not doing those treatments, again, being someone who is respectful of the team as an overall, right? Being someone who understands that, like, we're optimizing for patient experience, but also someone that's, like, ambitious, hungry, eager to grow, like, all of those different things, but also open to learning, like, from an approach that probably within our industry is not the norm.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, before we wrap up, they're pumping out dentists and allied health practitioners at the moment. For young aspiring dentists, what sort of advice would you give them to get to where you are now? Or what sort of advice would you give them to become like you, or to be the best at what they do?
Don't go to Turkey.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably just say, like, embrace the path, right? Like, be open to the opportunities that come towards you. Don't have, like, block out a lot of the noise, right? Because a lot of the noise is based off stuff that may have worked 10, 15, 20 years ago, but doesn't necessarily work now. We live in a completely different time now. You need to think about everything through a set of guiding principles, like, that you've got for yourself, not based off anyone else's guiding principles. And you need to think about things through first principles, meaning you distill them down to the most basic concepts, right, through the most common sense approach of thinking, and then you apply your own guiding principles to that.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying before about, like, the turkey thing, right, the way that I think through that is that's through, like, very, very basic, human common sense, to be like, all right, I live in Australia and I'm not a dentist, right? For example, from a patient perspective, And so like if I don't know anything about dentistry here, what's to make me think I know anything about dentistry in Australia, like in Turkey? If I don't know who to go to in Australia, do you know what I mean? So and then even from a dentist lens, it's like if someone is telling you to do something, or if you have an aspiration to get to a certain level and someone's telling you that you can't do that because you need to do X, Y, Z first, take the information, put it through your own lens, be like, okay, what here makes sense and what is actually real and what is just based off whatever experience that person has had, right? So if someone is telling you can't do surgery for 10 or 15 years until you graduated, all right, let's have a look at what their path was like. And are they saying things because of their own experience, or are they saying things through what is actually legitimate and real and how things work on like a ground level basis?
I think we're on the time horizon. There's a couple of things that we didn't touch on based on the e-commerce brand that you've got with Glizzy and things like that. And I think because, time is, we're measured on time.
This conversation can keep going.
Keep going. We're measured on time. And, we've been good friends for a long time now, seeing you transition from Waleed to Dr. Waleed. It's been, it's
crazy.
It's crazy journey to see that happen. And we're not just excited for what's happening now, we're excited for what's happening in the future. And like we said, the aim of the podcast is just to have a chat, a conversation with those who do more, whatever space that they may be. And we provide, like we said, is whatever value those can take from watching this. And there was so much valuable pieces in what you talked about. And I think as you grow and gain your own experiences, I'm sure there's going to be way more valuable insights that you learn yourself that you can pass on to other people. So I think that was an awesome conversation. I was so locked in trying to take notes for myself. So
this information overload.
So that was awesome. Is there anything that you want to finish on? I think you're now looking to are you looking to mentor some others as well? Is there anything that you're looking to do? Anything that you want to finish on or wrap up on?
Or are you offering any sort of mentorships to students at the moment?
Not really. Like I did more mentorships last year. Like now I'm really just focused on the clinics. Yeah. Right. The patients, the treatments, and really just like getting myself to the level where I'm more and more confident in delivering better patient outcomes and better patient experience. So a lot of what I'm focusing on now is really just like I said, patient experience is like, I had a brainchild idea 2 weeks ago of like being like, what if, for example, like, I don't know anything a lot of the time about what happens to a patient once the surgery is done. I might see them the next day, see them a week later, and then they're healing for 4 or 5 months. And sometimes I'm like 3 months later, I'm like, I wonder what's happening with him. Like, I wonder if everything's all right. And I was like, what if I created a solution to that? Right? Yeah. And then the natural answer to that was, what if I could gamify it, right? And be like, what if I could create an app or a tracking system, like, for example, how people wear an Oura Ring or a Whoop, right? Where it's a surgical focused, recovery system where, they've maybe an appliance like that's like a ring or something that you give them, and then it tracks all of their critical signs for, the 3 or 4 months after while they're healing, right? They get a subjective test that comes up of like, are they at a 5 out of 10 on that day? Are they at a 10 out of 10? How's the pain? How's the swelling? How's the bruising? Is there any red flags coming up? Which means that the team can then keep an eye on everything that's happening throughout that entire recovery process. And if there's a red flag that comes up, it's not contingent on them calling up, but rather we can see it straight away. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So things that I'm working on now and thinking about now is more related to that, and obviously mentoring the dentists that work with me in the clinics is the main thing. Yeah. Outside of that, not really. Like it's just.
I have another question. I'm just curious. Before you do a surgery, whatever it is there certain like medical conditions that you look out for, like facial palsy, for example? Is that contradictive onto surgery?
Yeah. So like going back to like the workflow that I was talking about, that was just sort of like partial of the workflow. Yeah. More about consult 1, consult 2, but then after that, there's also like medical history screening, blood tests, vitamins, all of that sort of stuff. If there's certain things that we can't work on, then that's when we refer it to like a specialist. That's just your general sort of overview of the workflow, but then in terms of the actual clinical side of things, it's much deeper than that.
Can you fix my teeth, bro? I might actually come for a consultation. The other places ghosted me, like no response, and then they sent me a text, are you guys still interested? And I responded, fuck off. Like they haven't responded or anything. I actually might come back with me and the missus might come back for a consultation, to be honest.
I think Louis got a flight to catch.
Yeah, Louis got a flight to catch.
I think